One Percenter Podcast with Sam Bakhtiar, bringing you the 1% knowledge to help you reach your full potential. Learn what it takes to rise above the 99% and become a 1%er.
What's up, everybody? This is Sam Bakhtiar, the host of your One Percenter Podcast, and I got somebody that I've been waiting and dying to talk to, because this guy knows his shit when it comes down to working out, nutrition, supplementation, all the shit that I love to talk about, and I've been a big fan of his for such a long time. Welcome, Mike Matthews. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you. I'm flattered.
Brother, I've been stalking you, literally, look, all your books, all
that's
your...
That's the second edition, too. That's the proof, is that, because you said you have the new one, and that's the first edition of that, so...
Yeah, and I got the Stocks book, I have the little Black Book of Motivation book. I have them all, bro. I'm a big fan of yours, and I want to just pick your brain. Before I do that, though, I want a little bit of history about you, how you got into the supplementation game and working out and all that kind of stuff. Because I saw your before and after picture, man. Your before and after picture was crazy. And your before picture was after putting 1,000 hours of gym time, and you I'm sorry to say, but you look like shit, right?
Yeah.
And then you found the formula. And what is the fucking formula? Because I want to know.
Well, looking at you, you know what the formula is. But we both had to learn it, and we both made probably a lot of the same mistakes. And in that way, I think that's one of the reasons why my story has resonated with a lot of people, because it is the stereotypical. You get into weightlifting, you don't know what you're doing. When I got into it, I was 17 or 18, and I just wanted to look better for girls. That's actually and that's the truth. Now, I grew up playing sports. I got into ice hockey, and so there was that too, where I was like, okay, I wasn't playing hockey anymore, and I still wanted to do something with my body, because I got used to that, and I liked just how being active felt. And then I was like, let's get into weightlifting, get some friends, get some bodybuilding magazines, and start messing around, right? You just kind of do whatever's in the magazine. You don't know why you're doing it. You just do it. And that pretty much explains the first 6 or 7 years of mine in the gym. I didn't really make any effort to educate myself beyond reading some magazines. And I came to enjoy working out. I had gained, let's say in that first 7 years, I had gained maybe 30 pounds of muscle, maybe. And let's say 25 to 30. And yeah, that's enough to go from looking kind of skinny to kind of muscular, but that's not very good. 7 years especially
at that age, right?
Absolutely.
At that age, you should be, packing on the muscle, right?
Yeah. I should have been absolutely jacked by the time I was in my, mid 20s, and I was not. But at least I knew that it's probably because I didn't really know what I was doing, and I wasn't taking it seriously enough in that sense, where I had my routine and I liked it, and I enjoyed being in the gym, and I had friends that we worked out together, but I knew that I hadn't really applied myself to it and really tried to figure out, all right, how do you get the most out of this whole thing? And so around that period is when I just decided to do that. Basically, I was like, yeah, if I'm going to put in the time, I might as well see what I can really get out of my body and what type of physique I can really build. And so that's when I learned about energy balance. This was the beginning of the transformation. Oh, energy balance. Oh, that makes sense. I never heard about that before, but that makes perfect sense. And oh, look, there's actually almost a century of metabolic research behind this. The weight of the evidence is abundantly clear. This is not even, it's so indisputable at this point. Scientists are not researching more about, oh, is this a thing? It's more about so we know this is how it works, but trying to get people to pay attention to calories isn't really working very well, on a population level. So how can we help them develop better habits that naturally result in them maintaining, doing a better, managing their energy balance better, right? Is more where they're trying to look at now. And so I learned about that, and I was like, oh shit, calories, okay. And and then macros, how does that break down? Because as if all you cared about was your body weight, all you have to care about is calories in and calories out. That's it. But we don't just care about body weight. We care about body composition.
Yeah,
Exactly. So then we have to pay attention to, okay, protein, carbs, fat. How are calories breaking down into those three main buckets? And then, of course, you learn that, and then you go a bit further and go, okay, well, nutrition, while it may not matter so much in the short run as far as body composition goes, we also do want to be healthy. We want to feel good. We want to, be active and vital, ideally, up until the end, right? And so if we want to do that, then we should be eating nutritious foods. And I actually spoke about this recently on my podcast on IFYM, if it fits your macros, that there was one case study in particular that was interesting with women that showed that a zinc deficiency reduced metabolic rate. And in the paper, they talk about mechanisms why, but it was pretty significant. If I remember correctly, in this case study, one of the women, fixing the zinc deficiency increased her daily metabolic rate by like 400 or 500 calories.
Wow.
I mean, that's a lot.
That's like an hour of hardcore cardio.
Exactly. And so can you maintain, a good body composition if you have an impaired metabolism due to a shit diet? Yes, but it's more difficult. It'd be a lot easier if you were burning those extra 500 calories and you get to eat a bit more food, right? And so I learned those things early on, and that's the first time I got lean. That's the first time I got down to maybe 7 or 8% body fat, and everything looked pretty good, abs, and that for me was like, wow, that was easy. That's because in the past, I hadn't really, again, made a real concerted effort to get lean, but I had heard of, like you and I, probably a lot of people listening, heard many things about what does it take to get really lean, right? It takes a bunch of cardio, and you have to cut out your carbs, and you have to cut out sugar, and you have to eat more of specific types of foods, and then there are other types of foods you can never eat, and blah, 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 right? And so when I learned that, like, oh, actually none of that really matters, and it's kind of just math, and there it is. That was obviously a milestone where I was like, okay,
Yes.
I guess my body composition now will never be a mystery or never be a problem. Now I know that it's just up to me in terms of what do I want to do.
Exactly. You can manipulate it and be anywhere at any time. You just got your body.
Exactly.
Within a few weeks, you can
Yep.
just up, go down. And yeah, exactly, Mike. I mean, that's exactly what I've done in the past to become the first bodybuilder, to have the first place out in every first class. I went to 143, 154, 176, 198. Once you know your body, you know macros, you know energy balance, man, you kind of can manipulate your body to look a certain way at a certain time.
Totally. And so I learned that, and that was like, okay, that's a good lesson. That's when you can take that to the bank, right? And then as far as training goes, I'd say, if I remember correctly, my first introduction to proper training was starting strength. Barbell training, focusing on progressive overload, compound exercises, increasing whole body strength. And from there, I think starting strength is a great program. However, at the time, and this is reflected in my own work.
This program?
Starting Strength by Mark Ripito. Just traditional, it's 5x5, traditional.
Old school fundamentals.
Old school, you're gonna get strong on the squat, deadlift, bench press, and overhead press. Like that's the place to start. And I, up until that period, this is probably like 8 years now in the weightlifting regularly. I mean, I never took any major breaks. I was always doing it. I don't think I had ever deadlifted once, period. Any form of deadlift whatsoever, actually. And I can remember sometimes squatting on the Smith machine. I did that. And I did plenty of bench pressing, of course, because, chest, obviously.
That's what men do.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so that turned into a major, that was like the major breakthrough in my training was, oh, okay, so I should be putting the majority of my efforts into these compound exercises and increasing whole body strength, and then supplementing those. Like, then that's where the bodybuilding. Now, I've never been a competitive bodybuilder, and so you have a whole other realm of experience that I don't have. But for my purposes and what I was trying to achieve, it was like, okay, I'm gonna put most of my efforts into increasing my whole body strength, which will of course increase whole body muscle gain. I'm gonna get strong on these key exercises, and then I'm gonna supplement, so to speak, the weekly volume with some isolation stuff that is more bodybuilding, like, you know, shoulders are perpetually a problem. It just is what it is, right? And if you want to have big arms, you're probably going to have to train your arms directly. Like, just doing pulling is probably not going to be enough, pulling and pressing. You're probably going to have to do some bicep curls and some press downs and stuff. Yeah, exactly. So I kind of started to put together a program that made sense for what I wanted to do with my body. And another change is from a pure strength approach is strength programs tend to be more lower body centric, because if you want to be a strength athlete, you better be able to squat and pull a lot of weight. So you better have big legs, and you better have a really strong lower body, and you got to be strong on the bench. So that's reflected in the programming. For me, it's not that it's not that I didn't care about my legs, but the reality is, and this is something I've seen now with most guys, is it takes a lot more work to get the upper body that most guys want, myself included, than the lower, than to get to a point where you're like, hey, I have a good lower body. I'm happy with that. It's just, there are a lot more smaller, stubborn muscles in the upper body as opposed to the legs, which,
you're 100%. My legs came actually pretty easy, and chest, back, chest, back, arms, man, I had a hell of a time. I have to do massive volume training and try to just confuse it all different angles, all different ways.
Totally. And that's common, of course. So legs, largest muscle group in the body, you can just blast them with heavy squats and heavy compound movements, and they often respond quite well. And, that's probably 80% of the game for a lot of guys. Now, I understand when you get into where you've been at the height of bodybuilding, the peak, like, I understand that you need to do a bit more. But for the average dude who's like, I just want to look really good, it's going to be easier for him to get by that standard, really good legs than a really good chest, for example, or often back. Lats, for example, are like notoriously stubborn and just take a lot of work, right? And so I was applying these things I was learning to myself and changing my training, and then seeing how that, reflected in the changes in my physique. And I started getting people asking me, what are you doing? Like, wow, especially people who hadn't seen me in a bit, right? And so I started to just share what I was learning. And the diet side of things was pretty simple. Explain how to make a meal plan, basically. Just start here. Here's how you do this. I'd have friends and sometimes family members, extended family members, come to the gym with me, and I would just show them, my training is pretty simple. Here's how I'm kind of going about it. Here are my staple exercises that I'm always trying to get stronger on, and then here are the extra exercises I work in to get some more volume, and explain what that means, And so then there was a guy I was training with at the time, and this is the first time I got lean and looked good. And he was like, dude, you should just, go on YouTube, take your shirt off and sell shit. And I was like, that's just not, I don't know. I'm not inspired. I'm not that I could, but I want to find a different way that I am maybe more drawn toward inherently, right? I wasn't really interested in being like an influencer, a YouTube guy or whatever, right? But I was interested in writing, and that was just something that I was actually.
So much more credibility in that, though. I mean, I'm not knocking YouTube. There's a bunch of YouTube, but you just have some great, amazing books out that are just so easy to read, but yet so specific, and gives you a step-by-step program. I love your books, bro. I mean, kudos to you. I'm so glad you chose that route.
Thank you. And so that was interesting to me, because I liked writing. And in my previous life, I had experience. I had built employee training programs for a number of different companies and did it for a lot of healthcare professionals in particular. And so I had some experience creating kind of how-to instructional stuff. And at the time also, I had heard about Amazon's self-publishing platform because there was a dude named John Locke who was like the first guy to sell 1 million books on their platform. And so they made a PR thing out of it. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. I'm going to take nights and weekends and I'm going to just write a simple book that I wish somebody would have just given me back when I was 17. And I'm going to, it's not going to be about selling the sizzle. I'm not going to try to go over the top with the marketing or even the promises. I'm just going to, you know, do a decent job on the marketing side of things, and then just be like, this is how it works. Just do these things, and within 1 month, you will see that it works, and you will see the potential for the future. I'm not asking for a big leap of faith, basically. And that was the first edition of Bigger, Leaner, Stronger. It was a simple, you know, it was a lot shorter than it is now.
Did you ever think that one day you'll want to sell over 1 million copies? I mean,
No, not at all. Honestly,
you sold over 1 million copies. I'm going like this. I haven't sold over 1 million of any fucking thing. You know, nevertheless, you know what I mean? So, you know, that's fucking impressive, bro. Like, I'm so impressed because when you go and look, you know, obviously I've read it, I know it, and I sign off on it. It's an amazing book. All your books are amazing. But not only that, I mean, not only I say that, I go on Amazon and look at the reviews. I mean, all your stuff is like 4.5, 5 stars. You know what I mean? I mean, it's not just bullshit that you put out. It's not, because some people just put out bullshit content just to put some shit out, right? You didn't just your stuff was very well thought out, very well organized, very scientific, great explanation, and also, you know, dumb enough down so that a person doesn't need to have a PhD in biochemistry to be able to read it and understand it. So you know, so for those people who are listening to this or watching this, man, you gotta, you know, if you're serious about fitness, you gotta go pick up his books. Don't take my word for it. Go on Amazon and just Google Mike Matthews and all his books and look at the reviews. You know, men lie, numbers lie. You know, the ratings and reviews don't.
absolutely, yeah. And that was my intention from the beginning, was make it simple, make it accurate, make it science-based, but write it again I was thinking of myself back when I was 17. What would be the book that I'd want someone to give me? And that's how I'd want it to be. I'd want it to be simple, straightforward, practical, accurate, evidence-based, but I wouldn't want it to beat me over the head with scientific jargon or just, you know, tangential, unnecessary information that, you know, might be interesting to like physiology nerds, but really not to most people.
And I got my master's degree from Penn State in pre-medicine, and I got my doctorate degree from chiropractic. So I understand that the scientific jargon, but I don't want to do that shit. You know what I mean? I don't want to go into the details.
That's interesting that you say that you know it. Like you have the background and you're still like, yeah, that's fine. But when it comes down to it, you know, I just want to know what to do, and I want to know it's accurate.
Especially for general population, they want to tell you, hey, do this, do that, spoon feed them until exactly what to do when. That's the only way people are going to get results, man. I mean, obviously the information is out there. It's just too much information. Everybody's just telling them one thing and another, and you just combine all the scientific data into a very easy to understand system, and you spoon feed them. And that's why your books, like I said, sold over 1 million copies. It was one of the best sellers. I mean, you know, it's not a magic formula. It's just made for people to understand and apply.
Totally. Yeah. And that's, and I think that is, we need more of that in the fitness space, because there are quite a few people out there who are smart and they know what they're talking about and they have good information to share, but the way they communicate is just goes right over the top of many people's heads. And it's not because many people or most people are stupid. No, it's because they take, even again, just jargon, just words. If you use too many specialized terms that most people have never heard of because they haven't studied it, they don't know what you're talking about, actually.
They don't, right? So you have to be able to.
Yeah. And so it's like, why are you communicating? Are you communicating to try to show off? And do you just want people to? You know what I mean? Do you want people just to be like, wow, this dude's really smart. He knows a lot of big words. I don't really know what he's talking about or what I'm supposed to do, but his brain works well. That's cool. Is that why you're communicating? Or do you want people to go, oh, wow, I didn't know that. I'm going to do that. That makes sense. Wow, that's great. I feel like I learned something.
My biggest saying, Mike, is this: any idiot can make a simple thing complicated. That's an idiot. But it takes a genius to take a complicated thing and simplify it for somebody else to understand. You know what I mean? And that's the genius of it. So when after did you decide to get into the supplementation game? Tell me about that. Books and everything else like that. And then you decided to, with Legion Athletics, man, by the way, I have bought your stuff from Amazon, your pre-workout, your protein and all that kind of stuff. It's amazing, top quality, top notch. And I own supplement companies. So kudos to you. And even when I went there, I'm like, gosh, this guy has just amazing reviews everywhere. His books are killing it. His supplements are killing it. Reviews after reviews after reviews of just 4.5, 5 stars. When did that come about? I'm sure there's a point where you're like, you know what? I'm tired of not only misinformation out there. I'm just tired of all this bullshit supplements that you used to take. Spend all this money. I did too. I remember Cybergenics Kid and amino acids. I don't know what these drops you put on there. I've done it all too.
I remember to go to GNC and walk out with like $300 of stuff and like, well, what's the newest stuff? The stuff in the back in the locked cabinet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you thought that was like the secret thing is locked.
Yeah. That, part of the marketing. So the supplements. All right. So I write Bigger Leaner. I published Bigger Leaner Stronger in 2012. And I think 20 people bought it. 20 copies sold the first month. But I was happy. I was like, hey, somebody bought my book. Yeah, because I didn't know, dude. I didn't know I honestly did not know if anyone was going to buy it at all or even give a shit, right? So fast forward to the end of the year and it's selling several thousand copies a month just on word of mouth alone, and I'm getting good feedback. People are asking me questions. I'm taking notes on like how I can improve the book, and that's a good point. I should answer that question. I should put that information could be helpful if I put that in as well. And so at that point, people were asking about supplements a lot. I touched on supplements in the first edition, and people were asking, what supplements do I personally use? They wanted to know, right? And so at the time, I was using Optimum Nutrition Whey and Optimum Nutrition's pre-workout and like a creatine supplement and maybe a multivitamin basic, right? And so in 2013, in the beginning of the year, I launched a website called Muscle for Life, which is really just a blog. Right. So where I could just write articles and just get more information out there. And I put up a simple little page on Muscle for Life recommendations. And I talked about, hey, here are the supplements I'm using and here's why. And my recommendations, though, were like lukewarm. I was the on way. I was like, look, I trust this company. They pass third-party verification, like validations. They're big. I don't think it's in their interest to amino spike or bullshit us. So I don't think it tastes very good. I'm not really a big fan of it, but that's why I use it and it's convenient. The pre-workout, honestly, I have said it to the website, like, it's not very good. The formulation is I just don't like coffee, and or I would probably just drink some coffee instead. Sometimes I just take a caffeine pill instead, but it does have a few grams of citrulline, which is not great, but maybe it's better than nothing, right? So it's very just kind of, I don't really like this stuff that much, but this is what I'm taking. And a lot of people, I then linked out to Amazon with an affiliate link. A lot of people were buying based on recommendations like those. And so that was interesting to me, where I was like, I mean, I'm not even trying to sell people. I'm basically saying like, these are not that good.
These are the best available, but they're not that
exactly good. That's exactly what it says. And this is the best I've been able to find, but I'm not very excited about them, honestly. And so then I got the idea, of course, okay, so what if I made the stuff that I wish was out there? And then, if people are willing to buy stuff that I don't really even endorse, I just kind of say it's maybe better than nothing. What if I had something that I felt strongly about that I could actually endorse and explain, hey, this is why this is special. Here's the pre-workout that I wish someone else, like, I'd be buying it if they were making it, but they're not. So I'll just make it. And that's how Legion came about. And I knew that I didn't know if it was going to go anywhere ultimately, but I knew that at least I wouldn't get stuck with, I could order $80,000, $100,000 of stuff and I wouldn't get stuck with it. I definitely would sell it. And,
And then
so it's kind of a low.
you end up taking it yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no shit. I have supplements for life. Yeah, so I figured that it was a safe based on how many people were buying through just the my.
But plus, you have your own brand. You control the quality. You know exactly
Yep.
the exact ratios of what you want in it. That's exactly why I created 1% Nutrition too. Because I said, you know what? I don't care if anybody buys it or not. This is the shit that I want to take myself. You know what I mean? And when you do this out of labor of love, and because you want to take it, you're actually your own, lab rat. You know what I mean?
Yep.
People recognize it rather than it's just a business investment. You're trying to skip on milligrams of citrulline, or you're trying to skip on quality just because you want to make a buck. People can smell that from a mile away.
Yeah, it's true, and especially with. At the time, proprietary blends were very common, and so I was like, "Fuck proprietary blends! I'm not doing proprietary blends. I'm gonna give exactly how much of each ingredient is in there, and then on the website, I'm gonna explain these ingredients. What are they? Why are they in the product? What research is out there in terms of benefits? How much is in the formulation, and why? Like, why was that dosage chosen? What's the evidence that shows that that's an effective dosage? I understand. I mean, if you're not a savvy consumer, you might hear, for example, that a number of studies show that beta-alanine can help you gain muscle a little bit faster and do a bit more work in your workouts, like get a bit more performance in your workouts, or same thing with citrulline malate, minus the muscle gain aspect, but that can help you get a bit more volume in your training, right? And you hear that, and maybe even you look into a little bit of the research, and you're like, that seems reasonable. And then you find a product that has citrulline malate in it, and you're like, cool. But of course, the key is how much and how often. So in the case of citrulline malate, what you really want to see is around 6 grams per day. Let's say 4 is low, 6 is not bad, and 8 is let's say really good, right? And so there are supplement companies out there that take advantage of that. They take advantage of the fact that there are a number of ingredients out there that people who are into this stuff have heard are good, but they don't necessarily know the protocol of how to take them correctly, which of course is how much and how often. And so that's part of the game. And so a lot of supplement companies now are doing something similar to what I'm doing, or at least claiming to, using the same terminology. But back when I started, there weren't many supplement companies. A lot of supplement companies were still using proprietary blends and weren't really, if they were making reference to science, it was almost like in passing, kind of offhand. I remember there were supplement companies that were citing almost random research. Sometimes the studies literally they weren't even on the ingredient that was being discussed, or they didn't back up the claim whatsoever. They were just counting on people, not looking into it, basically. And so I saw an opportunity there to, coming back to what you were saying, I think it's a good business lesson is if you are working on something that is first and foremost scratching your own itch, that's it
will be somebody else.
Start. That's a good sign. And if you are your first customer, and you're doing it for you, then not that that's the only way to achieve success, but that's just that's a good business takeaway. And the flip side of that is if you're not scratching an itch that you even understand, let alone have, you're probably not going to do well. You're probably going to miss the mark. And if the only way to get around that is you got to be a good marketer, you really have to spend time doing market research and really understanding the itch that exists. You don't have it, but other people do. And you have to be a very skilled marketer to make that work. It's much easier if you just address your own need, because it even comes through in the words that you use and how you communicate the problem that you're trying to solve. You're going to communicate in a way that a lot of other people immediately it's going to resonate. They're going to be like, yeah, I that's how I think about it. And then now they're listening to you, right? And so that's how Legion started. And again, it was similar to the books in that I wasn't sure ultimately how far it could go. But I knew it wasn't going to be a complete disaster. I knew I wasn't going to like get stuck with a bunch of inventory. And so we launched in 2014. And I'm now, you know, it does 8 figures in sales a year, and it's becoming a real. What's also cool is in the beginning it was kind of like Mike Matthews supplements. You know what I mean? Like, yes, it's called Legion, but it was synonymous with me, and people were of course buying the products because first and foremost they trusted me, and then they also liked that I did take the time to really explain what these products are, what's in them, what's the research. And now it's getting to a point where it has a life of its own as well, where there are a lot of people now who come our way who have just heard about Legion, and or they just came across it and they liked it, and they don't really know too much about me. They haven't necessarily read a book or an article or listened to a podcast, and so it's getting to that stage now, which is cool.
That's awesome, man. Now it's awesome to see your company outgrow you. You know, it's not
Yeah.
you anymore. You know, and I feel that with the CAN Transformation Centers, where before I was doing everything, like you said, you know, I was doing everything in the CEO again. And now, you know, when I make a decision, I have to run it by the board. I have to run it by attorneys, CFOs, CEOs, making sure, you know, we're taking the right direction. So really quick, man, I want to just get very specific on some subjects, and I want you to give me a direct, you know, no nonsense answer, right? Because I'm dying to pick your brain on so many different subjects, right? So subject number one, right? So, you know, a regular person in their mid-30s, early 40s, you know, come in right now and they said, you know what, you know, I used to take care of myself, and now, you know, because of, you know, work, because of the family, because of life situations, I put myself on the back burner. I've gained 20, 30, 40 pounds. You know, I need to get my life back. You know, what kind of exercise and what kind of, you know, diet program would you recommend for that? Obviously, everybody's different, you know, but what would you, you know, will be like your standard prescription, you know, for somebody like that?
Yep. So on the exercise side of things, I think the best place to start is, and I've had this conversation many times, do you have 3 to 6 hours a week that you can give to exercise? That's the first, and that's plenty. That's all that's needed for exactly what you're talking about, to go from that to fit, feeling good, looking good, and in many cases, better than maybe even in their 20s. You know, if they weren't like if they weren't into bodybuilding like you, or if they weren't really, you know, let's say very athletic in their 20s, they're just a normal person, and now they're in their 40s and they're overweight and they're not feeling too good, they absolutely can get into, and this is men and women, get into better shape now than when they were in their 20s. So for that, 3 to 6 hours a week for exercise. Let's spend about 80% of that time on training our muscles. It doesn't have to be weightlifting, but that is the most effective form of resistance training if we're talking about bottom line results.
Weightlifting, do you mean by like traditional kind of like, you know, bodybuilding exercises like bench press, curls, compound exercises? Or what do you mean weightlifting is by more doing high intensity interval training?
I like high intensity interval training more. I look at that more as cardio. So for weightlifting, I like the primary goal to be strength. Let's get you stronger, right? And so
muscle fibers, right? That's what you're trying to hit.
Yes.
Like hypertrophy, therefore stimulate metabolism.
Yep. And also just improving, I mean, with more strength comes more mobility, more functionality in the body, more health as well. Especially we're talking about, when we look into the future of as we get older, we want to stay muscular, we want to stay strong. And so if you want to maximize strength and muscle gain, which as you become a more experienced weightlifter, I mean, you know this, those things become more closely related. In the beginning, you can actually, and this has been shown in research, you can gain a fair amount of strength without gaining much muscle, because you get better at the exercises. You know, the first time you squat, it's awkward. I just want to make sure the Zoom froze here a little bit.
You said in the beginning you can gain a lot of.
Zoom. Yep. Zoom froze. I just want to make sure that. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so in the beginning, it's been shown in research, you can gain a fair amount of strength. I'm talking about the first couple months, a fair amount of strength without gaining much muscle, and that's primarily comes down to technique, right? So the first time you remember, if I remember the first time I squatted properly, it's actually the first. I remember this is why vividly the first proper squat, a full squat, no like a full below parallel, no Smith machine. So up until that time, I had gone off the Smith machine to the free bar, but I was doing essentially like quarter, maybe 1/3 squats, right? So I got up to 405 doing these quarter 1/3 squats, not knowing that this is like incorrect. And then this is when I found Mark Ribito, and I was like, oh, so that makes sense. That actually good. I'm going to squat that way. I don't take weight off the bar. I get down immediately. I'm like, oh, that's not coming back up. And so I didn't get hurt, fortunately, but I had to bail the weight over. And so I went from 405 quarter squats to 185 for sets of for 8 reps. I had to actually restart.
Lost your ego in the beginning. So when you're young,
Yeah.
it's a big. Oh, you care about how much weight you do, not the proper technique. I know. I've been there myself.
Exactly. So anyways, in the beginning, you get used to the technique, so you get better, and then your muscles they learn to fire more efficiently in the beginning because this is new. They're like, what's going on, right? But as you continue in your journey, in your fitness journey, especially once your newbie gains, after your first year or so is behind you, the number one way to continue gaining muscle is going to be continue gaining strength, right? Continue improving your strength on key exercises, and you got to be able to keep progressively overloading your body, right? So if that's the goal, the reason why I don't like kind of mixing cardio into weightlifting, exactly, and you're gonna find it very hard to gain strength if you're like taking 30-second rests in between sets and doing a ton of reps and burnout sets and drop sets and all this stuff. It's not that I think there's a place for stuff like that, but I would look at that more as cardio and not as strength training, right? And so that would be my recommendation is to spend most of the time, the 3 to 6 hours per week, on strength training. Yep, getting stronger, which will of course get you bigger as well. And then spending, it doesn't have of course to be an exact 80-20, but spending a minority of time on cardio if you want to do it. And I think it's smart. I think there are additional health benefits to doing cardio, and it helps with burning energy. And it is it can be a nice change from just lifting weights.
So talk about cardio, steady state cardio versus HIIT cardio. Which one do you recommend and why?
If you want to maximize fat burning and fat loss, then it's high intensity interval, right? I mean, there's no question. There's no question. But
training could cause catabolism and maybe hinder muscle growth, and that's why many big bodybuilders they just do a slow cold cardio. Do you think that could, if you want maximum strength and maximum size, do you think that might hinder it?
Absolutely. I mean, you look at it in terms of what many people think is HIIT is not. True HIIT is fucking hard. You know that, right? Like, just to put it in perspective for people listening, what you're supposed to reach on your high intensity intervals, you're supposed to reach the point where you are having trouble breathing. Like, forget about talking to people. I mean, you need to bust your ass to get the real benefits from HIIT, right? And so let's say you wanted to do sprints, just running, right? I've done this, and I eventually stopped doing it because my lower body was perpetually too sore. It was getting in the way of my squatting, my deadlifting, especially a lot of little muscles that they just never could get used to the heavy sprinting with also the heavy weightlifting. So I switched to the bike, right? So I switched to like a recumbent bike or an upright bike because there's no impact. But even that, me to doing quite a bit of it, I got fairly good at it. So I was doing, I want to say 30 to 45 seconds on and 60 seconds off. So that was my low was 60 seconds. So it's pretty intense, right? But I would intentionally not. I would put a day or two after that in between, before I would squat or pull, basically. So like I wouldn't do a hit session and at night as when I was doing my cardio, and then the next morning try to go squat heavy, because there's a bit of recovery that needs to be factored in, right? And so, and that's the truth though with cardio in general. To maximize strength gain, you do want to minimize cardio. I mean, there's research has shown this. Anecdotally, bodybuilders have known this for a long time. There is a bit of an interference effect. However, if we take the normal person who just wants to get fit, I don't think that should be a huge concern. Doing an hour or two of cardio per week, not per day, but per week, is certainly not going to be an issue for the average person who just wants to get fit. And so steady state, just to answer your original question. So HIIT, okay, if you want to maximize fat burning and fat loss, HIIT is the way to go. If you don't like it, if it's a bit too intense for you, that's totally fine. You don't have to do it, but you should just know that. And steady state, of course, is the alternative, and that's totally fine. You're not going to burn as much fat from those workouts, but you are going to burn calories, you are going to burn fat, and it's easier on the body. And, you know, even so far as, and this is something you mentioned, walking. I wrote an article on this and recorded a podcast. Walking is an effective type of cardio. It's the easiest thing you can do.
I do, and everybody makes fun of me. My cardio is walking the dog every morning for 2 miles, and I'm good with that. I'm not a HIIT guy, but I know HIIT is the best. So really quick, shifting to the nutrition. Let's just now, we got the training, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now we got to get the nutrition. Do you prescribe to, low carb, high carb, keto? What do you, everything that you have experience with, for a general person trying to lose weight, what have you come up with the most effective plan?
I prefer, and again, these are starting places. And like you said, everybody's different. So some people, ultimately, everyone is going to have to find exactly what works for them. But I like to give people sensible starting places and things that tend to work for most people, right? And so the type of diet, if you can call it that I like to recommend, at least I recommend people try first, is flexible dieting, right? So what that means is, I'm not saying that you have to eat, follow a low carb approach or even a high carb approach. High protein or high-ish protein is always a good idea, but
kind of macros, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Understand how calories work, energy balance, understand macros, and start with a balanced approach, like the standard old school bodybuilding, 40% of calories from protein, 40% from carbs, 20% from fat is a great place to start because it's just balanced. You get to eat plenty of different types of foods, eat the stuff that you like, and you're going to have enough carbs for your workouts. So you're probably going to feel good in your workouts, and start there. And a great place to start with that is meal planning, is learn how to make a meal plan that you just follow every day. And
right there, man. We got some recipes right here. So if you guys want a meal plan, want to know how to, make delicious food that actually is healthy, this is it, guys. This is it. This is the truth.
Yeah, and that's something that
I love your stuff so much. I got to plug it in.
Yeah, no, the cookbook was a fun project because there were a lot of recipes I just collected over time and things I'd adapted, and that's how that book came about. And there's a lot of good stuff in there. A lot of people are surprised that they can eat a lot of different foods so long as they just know how the different pieces of the machine work. You have a lot of flexibility, and so I find that most people do well with that approach, and it's a little bit maybe extra work, quote unquote, than just being like, oh, I'll just cut all the carbs. However, most people don't really enjoy cutting all the carbs, so that already sets them up for failure because it's not a sustainable lifestyle. And once they understand these things that we've been discussing, and they go, oh, okay, so I'm really talking about like 15, maybe 30 minutes to make a meal plan, and then I'm good for you know, shit, I could be good for 2 months before I really feel like making any major changes. And then there's an additional benefit of, if you do that and you get that experience meal planning, you start familiarizing yourself with the calories and the macros of the foods you like. And then it makes it easier in time to not have to really follow a meal plan exactly, or to make changes on the fly, because you have a good sense of, you know, you normally eat 500 calories for breakfast, let's just say, right? And you normally eat these foods. Maybe you are on vacation, or maybe for whatever reason, you're just going to eat something else. You instinctively will make better decisions, and you will find it easier to keep your calories to around 500-ish, even if you're eating different foods than normal. So there's just a lot to be gained, I think, from taking a more structured approach in the beginning, as opposed to following a dogmatic, restrictive diet that just says you can't eat all of these foods that you like, and therefore by default you're going to eat a lot less calories or a lot fewer calories. And sure, you might get some results. Eventually you're going to hate this, and then what? And that's the problem. And then what, right?
See, the issue that I see, Mike, with, you know, being in the fitness industry for so many years is everybody wants results fast, right? And if they don't get results fast, they get discouraged, you know? So part of the whole thing is that we have to kind of like, you know, we kind of have to, what you would call it? We kind of got to motivate them, kind of play the psychologist. Yep. And, you know, for me, it's always been, let me see if I can get them some quick results, right?
Yep.
Then they already, if you get them the quick results within a week, right? They kind of get motivated, you know what I mean? They kind of like, you know, spark on them, and they kind of want to continue. But, and, you know, it's very hard when somebody, you know, comes in and, you know, they change their lifestyle, they start exercising, and they lose 1 pound a week, even though we know that's the correct way. You and I know, you know what, this is a marathon, you know, not a sprint. You know, but most people, we live in a microwave society when everybody wants things right now, and everybody wants the immediate gratification results. So I'm always trying to figure out how to, you know, maybe get them some quick results right away, and then get them on that maintenance program. Do you see that as well?
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. I mean, it's very true. And there are a lot of people who are looking for the quick fix and the magic bullet. And if you can get them quick results, they think that, oh, this might be the quick fix, or this might be the magic bullet. And so I totally understand that. And low carb, for example, is an easy way to drop weight quickly, because you're going to, you know, water, glycogen comes out. Yeah. And it's not going to, over the long term, and a number of studies have shown this, it's not going to help you lose fat faster unless it just helps you stick to your diet better. And some people do. No problem.
Joe, can you call Joe really quick?
Which Joe?
Joe is our next guest.
Gotcha.
Ready? Let's go out there and call him.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Let me.
Everything's good?
Before on this again.
He's coming from Vegas. I think he might be by the
Got
gate.
it. It's gonna be
702. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. So let's continue. So take low carb, right? Easy way to lose weight quickly. Over the long term, it's not going to help you lose fat faster, and a number of studies have shown this, unless it just helps you stick to your diet better. And some people, they do find that they just do better with a lower carb, higher fat approach. They are less hungry and they prefer to eat that way, and therefore it helps with compliance. Great, then do it. Most people that I've worked with, and I've worked with thousands now over the years virtually, and I get people reaching out all the time, I'd say most people, that's not the case. Most people enjoy being able to eat some carbs, and enjoy being able to eat carbs they like, you know what I mean? And so keto is an even more extreme, where a lot of people do not enjoy the keto diet. They do it because they think it's going to help and it's what they need to do, but they are not liking it.
But
and so
eating carbs, man, is back to day one. You know, I mean, I remember when I first, you know, give keto a legitimate try. You know, I went, you know, I haven't eaten bacon for years, and you know, I was like in a traditional low fat, moderate carb, bodybuilding diet. You know, and I wouldn't buy bacon and butter and just 80%, beef and all kinds of stuff. I came home. My mom was like, "Oh, my son is normal again." So she started making me breakfast and she tried to give me a toast with it. I'm like, "No, I gotta have the toast now." So it was, it was crazy.
Yeah, you know, you bring up a good point with keto, and that is how a lot of people do it, right? And so they go, well, shit, now I can eat hamburgers every day, bacon, butter, all these delicious foods. But my contention with that is, you know, the weight of the evidence says that that's just a bad idea. That is going to increase the risk of heart disease. Now, if you do it for a short period of time, no, you're going to be fine. But if that is the way you're eating for, let's say, years, and then if you also combine being overweight and sedentary with that, that's just not a good idea. And the keto diet would be less interesting, I think, to many people if they had to do it in a more healthful way, which would mean, for example, eating what you'd say were traditionally like healthy fats. So if you go, all right, how am I going to eat this much fat every day? I'm going to have to eat X number of avocados, X handfuls of nuts. I'm gonna put extra olive oil on my salad. I'm gonna have some red meat too. It becomes less interesting, and I'm gonna eat like that every day. That is a lot less appealing than
100%.
A stick of butter a day, a pound of red meat a day, a pile of bacon for breakfast. So, anyways, that's just a comment on keto. Not that that's how keto is like meant to be done medically, but that just it is the way that many people do it.
So going back, right now, what supplements are you taking? Because I want to know.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I use pretty much all of my own stuff, honestly, but to be specific, so I have a scoop of whey protein before I go to the gym, and I have a banana. That's usually some 20-ish grams of protein, and 25 to 30 grams of carbs before I train. I don't like to have much food in my stomach before I train. I go first thing in the morning. And then I come to the office after I work out, and I have a scoop of, I have a plant protein. It's pea and rice, and not that there's anything particularly special about that per se. It's a good vegan protein, but I just like it. I like the consistency. We just actually reformulated it and re-released it, and I really like.
It tastes good, man, because I haven't had a plant protein. I think I only had one or two plant protein that tastes good. The other ones just taste like dirt. I'm sure.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And I would be curious if next time if you're buying any of my stuff, order some Thrive. If you don't like it, of course, we'll give you your money back. But I feel like I have a palate, at least. I'm not like a Rottweiler, you know what I mean? I don't just I've tried, for example, I remember back in my random supplement days, and remember beef protein when that was like a thing, beef protein powder. I know it's still around, but there was a time when it was like a thing. And I remember taking one drink of it, spitting it out, and throwing it away. I was like, this is disgusting. I have no idea how people drink this stuff. So I'm very happy with how it's called Thrive is our plant protein. So I do one scoop of that with another scoop of whey, and usually something that's complementary, like vanilla Thrive with cereal milk whey. It's like a combination I like, right? So another 40 or so grams, 45 grams of protein. And I usually have another piece of fruit just to have some more food in my stomach, like an apple, right? And then my next supplement would be I have some food. So now I take fish oil. I take my own, but I take fish oil. I take a multivitamin, which is my own. I take my joint supplement Fortify with that first meal. And I usually have something random that, because I'll reach out to the scientific advisory board that I've put together for Legion. Smart people know a lot more about supplementation than I do, especially Curtis in particular, who is the co-founder and former lead researcher and writer over at examine.com. Like all the stuff you see on examine.com, more or less, was Curtis, right? And so I'll ask Curtis sometimes, give me something interesting that you feel has promise. It's just under research, right? And so he'll throw some things my way sometimes. I'm like, sure, I'll try that, right? And, I think black ginseng was the last one. And so I usually have something random like that, kind of just for fun. But my staples are Yeah, exactly. Where I just, why not, right? Um, and and then my post workout. So creatine is really the main ingredient. So I have creatine 5 grams a day after I train. And so then in the afternoon, I have a scoop of my green supplement, Genesis, which is I like it because it's a bit unlike most green supplements. It's not just powdered fruits and vegetables, which is cheap and sounds good and good margins, but I would prefer people eat their fruits. And you can't replace eating fruits and vegetables with just powder, right?
100%.
So I went in another direction with my greens product, and it contains stuff that you wouldn't normally eat, like spirulina, right? So it contains 5 grams of spirulina. That's why it's actually super green, is the spirulina. And it contains reishi mushroom and astragalus and other things that you wouldn't eat this stuff, but it has good research behind it and it provides benefits, right? So that's another supplement that I take. And I will often take, I have a product, I kind of call it a multivitamin for your brain. It's a nootropic, but it doesn't have any stimulants in it. So, which makes it, coming back to what you were saying about instant results. So it makes it less popular, I guess, in some ways than some nootropics that have, even if it just has caffeine, like, yeah, you're going to feel something if there's enough caffeine.
Caffeine, right? Yes, I get it.
Exactly. But I didn't want to do that because I just think that for me, that doesn't make sense. Like, let's have our caffeine.
You want to, it's not your core values. You want to put the best stuff in there and not just trying to get, yeah, I get it 100%.
Yes. And so let's create something that if you take it every day, your brain is likely, let's say we're going to be giving it nutrients and things that can help it perform better, but it doesn't mean that you're going to take it one serving and be like limitless now or whatever. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's similar to a multivitamin, that you're giving your body good things that it's going to use to function better, right? And so I'll take that in the morning. I forgot that that's also in my morning stack, so to speak. And I also I have pre-workout before I train, and I use a stimulant free. So I have, my pre-workout is called Pulse, and I have it with caffeine and without caffeine. And caffeine is great. Yeah, and you had mentioned that you had liked it, right? And I prefer these days to keep my caffeine intake quite low, because I find that I'm a lighter sleeper now than I was when I was younger. And so although having a nice, a clinically effective dose of caffeine before training it makes a difference. It does. I just choose to do the caffeine.
Yeah,
Yep.
me too. As I got older, I'm staying more and more away from stimulants.
Yep.
I have 2 pre-workouts too, man, and one with heavy dose of caffeine and one with none. And I take the one with none along with some minerals, and some Gatorade Zero. I had that together, so that's my pre-workout. Okay, so let's switch. Let's just say you have a client that is in their mid-30s, early 40s, male, that comes to you, is not getting the results as he should be. He's doing everything correctly. You find out that his testosterone levels are in the dumps. And his GH levels are in the dumps. Do you recommend him consulting to a doctor and maybe get on TRT and growth replacement therapy for longevity and anti-aging? Or do you think that that could be done without that?
Yes, a good question. It's a discussion I've had with many people, and so what I always recommend is let's see what we can do naturally first. Let's see if there are things missing nutritionally. How are you sleeping? How are your stress levels? What's your workout? What's that whole part of your life like? And let's do everything we can. Now, unfortunately, there aren't really any supplements that are going to help in that regard. That's why I don't sell a hormone-related supplement.
So tell me about triples. Doesn't triples help stimulate testosterone production? Things like that. Have you seen any studies on that? Because last time I checked, triples was like huge in the community of boosting testosterone.
It's still it's still popular, and I've written a long form article specifically on this ingredient, but also on just testosterone boosting in general. And the evidence is pretty clear on Tribulus that it does not work. Like, Tribulus is not just an ingredient that is under research. There are ingredients where there's no research that shows it works. In Tribulus's case, there's research that shows it does not work for boosting testosterone. And the bottom line is that's the case for every natural thing that you could possibly look into. Unfortunately, D-aspartic acid is kind of interesting in that it may boost somewhat for a couple weeks, and then it's probably just going to be back to nothing. So
magnesium aspartate, and I know that was really popular, and I know zinc, helps testosterone production. What are your reviews on ZMA?
Yep. Yes, that's true. So zinc, if you are low in zinc, it's going to negatively impact your testosterone production. And so you could supplement with zinc to handle that, or you could eat more zinc rich foods in your diet. You could look at your diet, right? And so, yes, vitamin D deficiency will depress testosterone levels. I believe even it's hard to get a vitamin C deficiency, but if you did, I believe that also, if I'm remembering correctly. So there are nutritional things. And that's why I was saying, like, it's good to look into that stuff first. Where is your nutrition at? Where are your vitamin D levels at? You have to get blood tested to know that. And even if you want to know zinc, it'd be good to get some blood work done and see where you're at, and see, are there any obvious things where it's like, oh, well, why don't we fix these things? And let's say vitamin D levels are low, zinc levels are low, magnesium levels. Most people are not getting enough magnesium. That's just common because it's kind of hard to get enough through food alone. It is something that's much easier to just supplement with. And then on top of that, sleep is generally not very good. And in the gym, they're doing mostly cardio, right? So you take that situation, I would not recommend that they just go to a doctor and get on TRT. Let's fix those things first. Let's fix the diet. Let's see what we can do about the sleep. Also, stress levels go into that as well. Are you super stressed out? Can we do something about that?
Total sense. It makes total sense. It's like somebody having like a little, shoulder issue, right? Let's see what we can do with physical therapy and rehab first before you shoulder, and build it. I'm so glad you answered it like that, because it's a refreshing way, to know that, hey, we're going to correct what we can and do it as much as we can naturally, and then work and obviously go see a healthcare professional and try to do it.
Yeah, and I understand that, because there's a point where if it's truly low testosterone, that's negatively impacting quality of life at that point. That means low sex drive, low energy, and if you've done everything you can naturally, and that is what it is. I understand, even myself, going, I don't really want to. The risks of TRT are relatively low. It's going to be a low or moderate dosage. We're not talking about high bodybuilding dosages. And yes, I will have to be on drugs I will have to be on these drugs for the rest of my life. But and that may increase the risk of prostate issues a little bit, possibly.
Yeah.
The evidence is not exactly clear. It's just, I could understand going, well, I don't want to live. I don't want to be stuck feeling like this. And I've done everything I can. I'm not just like copping out and, I'm too lazy to fix my diet. I'm too lazy to train properly. No, I'm doing everything. So I think it makes perfect sense to do that. And growth hormone is trickier because it's hard to test for, because it pulses. And then, so you can do it, but as you can't just do it in one. You can't just get your blood drawn once. Like, it needs to be over the course of time, and you need to see, again, I take the same approach though. Let's look at the basics, the fundamentals. Is there anything that's out that we can address? And if not, then it makes sense to go the medical route. And then it's then as I would not feel bad myself in terms of like doing something to my body that's unwarranted, not at all, if I'm doing everything that I can. And then it's like, I don't like living like this, and there's nothing else I can do. And there's maybe a small risk, but I can fix this, and I'm not being egregious about it. And I'm not saying that and then blasting my test up to like 5,000 NGDL and being like, okay, now I'm fixed. You know what I mean?
Got it. Got it. So right now, what are the next big projects you're working on? I would love to know, what is making you excited? Because obviously, man, Mike, you're very successful at what you do. Like I said, I don't know too many people that sold over 1 million copies, in books. You have it, an amazing supplement company with amazing reputation. It seems like it's like kind of running on autopilot. Reviews are amazing, sales are amazing, doing 8 figures. What gets you excited right now? What is your next project?
Good question. So I'm working on an updated second edition of Beyond Bigger, Leaner, Stronger, the sequel. And I'm excited. I'm actually really excited because it's really coming together nicely to where I just feel like similarly with this new third edition of Bigger, Leaner, Stronger that I released. I feel like it's a huge improvement over the second edition, and the 4 years that passed between the second and third edition was time well spent.
And the science has changed,
It's true.
And I love the fact that you update your books all the time. You need to put it out and update, because look, man, this stuff is changing on a daily basis. New research, new things, new products, new herbs, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm glad you did that. So you come up with a second edition of that. Anything else we should look out for?
So that's going to be for intermediate and advanced, and so I'm pumped about that. And then on the Legion side of things, we actually just, so that website that I mentioned earlier on, Muscle for Life, we merged it into Legion. So now we're ramping up the content production at Legion, which is cool. That it's easier, obviously, to focus on one property than it is to like try to split efforts between both. So I'm excited we want to get it up to 4 to 6 articles per week on Legion, not all from me, obviously. I have a team of like anything that's published under my name, I wrote, but I have other people published under their names. So getting the content up and running, even just taking that to the next level. And then we're going through a rebrand with Legion. And I'm super excited for that because I to be honest, I don't like how the products look. I thought I was into the look early on, and now I really don't like where it's at.
You outgrew it, and now you think it could be better. Yeah.
Yep. And even specifically, like, I think the products look too masculine. They look too bodybuilder-ish, and they don't quite align with my best customers, so to speak, the people. I mean, I attract a lot of people like you. I attract a lot of educated people. I attract a lot of people who are, you would probably still consider yourself maybe a bodybuilder, maybe you're not competing anymore, but you're a bodybuilder. At least you know what that's like. I attract a lot of people who don't. They just like want to get fit. And so the new look, which we're I'd say 2/3 of the way through the work. I'm working with an agency on it, a marketing agency, but I'm really excited to roll that out because it's more gender neutral. That's a fucking problem. I realized after enough women looked at I heard from women who would tell me their first thought when they would see my stuff is, oh, that's not for me. Like, oh, that's not good. That's a problem. I mean, women are the consumers of the world. And I don't say that negatively, like that's statistically.
I'm getting the same thing because, my stuff at 1% is all like black, white, and red.
Yep.
And, women kind of want like a little brighter colors and a little softer look. And
Yep.
You're right when you say women are the consumers of the world. Trust me, man. I see my credit card bill, every month when my wife is ordering. So I get it. And I'm sure you do too.
And then even when if she goes to the grocery store, let's say she's in Whole Foods, right? Or, she's going to be looking, it's more likely there are a lot more wives and girlfriends and just, women who know guys or that they care about, or brothers and stuff who are in Whole Foods, for example, and they're looking at like getting a protein powder, maybe for their boyfriend or their husband or their brother or friend or whatever. That's a lot more common than the guys themselves in there, right? And so the new look is going to be more gender neutral. It's going to look more premium and less bodybuilder-ish. Still sports nutrition. It's not going to look like a foo-foo, women's, multivitamin type of look of just like white and green or something. But it's just a much better look. So I'm excited to get that done. because I think it's going to immediately impact perception and revenue. And then we also then are going to be pursuing retail opportunities that I've just have on hold, because I don't, you get one shot with retail.
Yeah, you don't want to rebrand when you're there. You want to make sure that's done first, then go to retail with your rebrand. That's
exactly.
Wow, man.
Yep.
I'm amazed. I'm amazed by you, brother. I'm amazed by your accomplishment. By everything you're doing. I want to thank you on my behalf. I want to thank you on behalf of the entire fitness industry for speaking the truth, bringing the great products that you do, and all just the content that you put out, that is out there, just helping people get in the best shape of their lives and making them educated on proper nutrition, proper supplementation, proper human anatomy, physiology, and biomechanics. So, it's been such a pleasure, having you on the show. I'm telling you, like, for months I've been anticipating this, and I wanted to pick your brain, and I want to bring you back on the show if you would have us, and if you have the time, because I can sit down and talk to you for hours and hours and hours about just different amino acids and different supplementation and glutamine and L-carnitine. These are stuff I still want to do, but we can be here all day and all day, and we can just start going back and forth and all that kind of stuff. So I truly appreciate you. For those people that are listening to this or watching this that maybe haven't heard of Mike Matthews and all this stuff you have done, what would be the best place for them to get more information about you, get some of your products, and get to know more of what you do in the fitness industry?
Absolutely. And first, let me just say thank you again. I'm grateful, and I think it's great that we're in the same space, but you'll have me on your podcast and we can talk. And technically, you could say, oh, I have a competitive company. You know what I mean? But that doesn't matter to you, and I understand, because like me, we want to get good information out there, and the supplements is great, but I say this, that supplements are supplementary. The keys are a lot of the stuff we've been talking about. Those are the keys. And if you want to add supplements into it, great, do that. And it can make a difference. But it's the most important stuff is everything else that we've been talking about. And so, the more we can get that information out there, the more we can truly help people. And if they come and buy some supplements from us, great. And if they don't, that's fine too. You know what I mean? So anyways, just wanted to say that. And then to answer your question, the best place to find me is legionathletics.com, Legion athletics.com. And you'll find, of course, there's supplements there, but you'll also find my books, podcasts, articles, videos. Actually, no, we haven't put that up yet. Soon I'll have my videos there as well. Videos are on YouTube for now, but we'll be integrating them into the website a little bit better. And if people want to check out my books, Amazon's the easiest, right? But they are in bookstores, they're in Barnes and Nobles, and they're also, online, bn.com, iTunes, Google Play, and so forth. And the big yellow book, and then the women's is purple.
This is like the Bible right here, man. Like, you gotta read this. This and Arnold Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding are my Bible right there. So this right here, man. If somebody says something, I say, you have to read this guy. So, right, brother, it's been a pleasure. I know you have a billion things to do with your company, with your beautiful family, and everything like that. You took a couple hours out of your day to be here. I can't thank you enough. Good luck to you. And if there's anything that I can ever do for you personally, please don't hesitate to reach out. And there you guys have it. This is the episode of 1% Podcast. Mike, the one and only Mike Matthews in the house. God bless you, brother. Best of luck to you.